For every adventure, the podcast that dives deep into everything outdoor. Coming up in this episode, we have Rhuan, a fishing expert, and it was a lovely conversation. He's going to take your mind to a few remote locations, give you loads of fishing tips, a few products you can use, and so much more. And listen, Chanel's the one with the more fishing experience, just from the get-go.
So stay tuned just for that. But also, if you don't have a lot of experience and always thought maybe I should try it, this is definitely for you as well.
For every adventure. An outdoor podcast experience brought to you by Outdoor Warehouse. Hey, welcome to the podcast. My name is Kyle. Hello, Chanel.
Hey, Kyle, how you doing?
I'm good, thanks. Something fishy going on into today's episode. And listen, I'm going to be very honest with you. I don't have a lot of fishing experience. I do have a faint memory of myself as a child in Onrus and going to the local small shop and getting one of those fishing nets. And then going to the rock pools, I think it's Davy's pool or something, and trying to catch whatever's in there. So I think you have a bit more experience than me in this one.
A little bit. They always say, gaan jy vis vang of hengel? Want, it's almost like fishing or angling. It's not necessarily that you're going to catch something, but it's about the experience.
All right.
I've got a little bit of experience, I must say.
Okay.
So it's something that I've really wanted to do since I was a little girl. My poor dad had to take myself and my sister out at Stilbaai, and we used to catch those oblasies. Have you seen those fish? They sort of blow up. Yeah,
I think I know what you're talking about.
You can't eat them. Yeah. Anyway, so we used to catch a lot of those. And then I've had a couple of experiences after that. I've been deep sea fishing and a lot of sea fishing, like, standing on the sand and trying your best, that sort of thing. And then also 1 or 2 fly fishing trips. So, I've had a fishing license or 2, put it that way.
Nice. I don't think I would cope with deep sea fishing. I would probably not spend a lot of time at the edge of the boat. But definitely something. Yeah, something I would like to experience, but I have this. I don't think it would work out too well for me. I've actually been on a cruise ship and I did not too bad on there.
No, I think you'll be fine.
Okay.
I think once you start, it could actually be something that you'd really enjoy, Kyle. Is there a reason, though? Is there a reason you haven't tried it before? Or just didn't come your way?
It just didn't come my way. It just didn't happen for me. But I want to learn how to fish. I think it's a great way to bond with friends or family. So when I envision a fishing trip, at least in my mind, I envision like a nice, quiet camping spot next to the river or something, a body of water for you to fish in. And bonding with the cold one, with friends or family, that's how I envision a good fishing trip. Not very competitive.
Yeah, because you don't have patience.
I have a bit of patience. What do you mean I don't have patience?
If I look at you as a driver, okay, then I know there's not a lot of patience. So as long as it's about the kuier,
yes,
then it'll be fine for you. But it can't be competitive because I don't think you'd really like that too much.
Maybe not. But for me, I think a good starting point is just learning the basics, taking the sun out, and having a good time, bonding. That's how I see it, and I think a lot of people get into fishing that way. Your father takes you or your mom takes you to a body of water and you have a good time.
You might just be put off though. Because when that little son of yours gets to that point where we were, they don't really know what they're doing. So it's you end up just fixing their lines for them all the time. There's net kraaines after kraaines.
Okay.
And that could be so frustrating that it might put you off. So go before you take the little one out.
Okay. Just get some training beforehand.
Yes.
Well, it's an art that's been mastered for years and years and years. I think the first humans, when they figured out they could eat fish, fishing started. And I think as a recreational activity, fishing in the late 1400s, about 1496, the first records came out of someone writing a book about recreational fishing. So it's something that's been with us for a long time and for a good reason. And today's guest is a man who can tell us a lot about fishing. His name is Rhuan, and we'll be chatting to him right after this. So let's cast the lines and jump in. The seasons are turning, and here at Outdoor Warehouse, we are getting ready for the summer sun and outdoor cooking. Keep your food items cool and fresh with our amazing assortment of cooler boxes, fridges, freezers, and thermoelectric coolers. And keep the fire burning with our Braai essentials like grids, bread pots, and gas lighters. Make summer cooking easy and affordable, no matter where the adventure takes you this summer. Outdoor Warehouse. For every adventure. For every adventure. The official Outdoor Warehouse podcast that brings you everything you need to know for your next adventure.
So Rhuan is a fishing and angling expert. He's also a TV presenter, producer. He's an absolute jack of all trades when it comes to the angling and fishing industry. Welcome, Rhuan Himan.
Chanel, Carl, how you guys doing?
Great, thanks. Where are you at the moment?
I'm sitting in the beautiful Natal Midlands. I'm based in Nottingham Road. Probably a lot of people haven't heard of this place ever before, but basically I'm situated at the foothills of the Drakensberg Mountains.
Oh, that sounds like a good time, huh?
Oh, it sounds beautiful. Are you from that area? Is that where you started fishing?
Not at all. I managed to land up in this fly fishing mecca, if I can call it that, but I'm originally from Gauteng. Right down south on the border. I was born and raised on the Vaal River, in the Vaal Triangle. Yeah, so that's where I'm originally from.
And your love for fishing, that passion, where does that come from?
It's like you said earlier, it starts with dad. I think for most people, I was lucky enough to be raised in a family that was a fishing family. My uncle and dad spent a lot of time next to the water's edge, fishing for carp, bass, all sorts of species with conventional tackle.
Nice. I know something about carp. I was born here. No.
Man, carp.
Okay.
And not the same carp.
Yeah. So you've developed this love for fishing and the passion for it with the bonding you had with dad. And how did you manage to make it your career?
I was hunting down a job in media. I was studying journalism at the time, and I was sending out emails to all sorts, but trying to focus on my passions, sport, outdoors, fishing. And I ended up emailing the company that I work for now, and they invited me down to Nottingham Road for an interview. And fast track that, a week later, I moved down to Nottingham Road, and I've been here ever since.
Goodness me! Okay.
Yeah, so it kind of evolved into where I started featuring in some of the episodes on the Wildfly Fishing series. Just my passion for fishing was that big, and I think they recognized that, and they kind of realized they can't keep me in the office all the time. Yeah. So I got an invite every now and then to fish in certain episodes. And it just grew. I think it was a bit of a difficult one in the beginning for me, and I wasn't that great in front of camera, if I have to be honest. But I grew in it, and I started enjoying it, and naturally, because they were going to destinations and places that I really wanted to go to myself.
Yes.
I kind of made a point to get better at it, and it just naturally progressed into that.
It's the dream, really. I think for so many people, I just want to know, is it something that you envisioned? Is it something that you thought you'd like to be in the outdoors, combine this with your knowledge and your skills, what you've studied, or not really? Did it just happen for you?
It just happened like that, to be honest. It all happened perfectly for me. It's just, I keep saying the word naturally. It really was like that. It just felt like it was almost destined. For myself. So later on, I even I pitched my boss and now partner, Gareth George, on an Afrikaans television show, and it just expanded, and it's going well.
So there might have been mentioned that my patience is not great earlier on in the recording. What would your advice be for someone who may not have a lot of patience and who may view fishing as a boring activity to keep them engaged throughout?
So, Carl, I can vouch for that. I'm like you. I'm not the most patient person. I've got ADHD, I think, self-diagnosed. So I'm not the most patient person, but you learn patience through fishing. And there's different facets of fishing, different styles of fishing. And when you start exploring the avenues, I mean, you can make it as adventurous as you want. You can make it as boring as you want. If you just want to sit next to a dam and chill and not think of too many things, there's a way to do that. There's a fishing facet to do that. If you really want to be busy, keep your feet busy, keep your hands busy, keep your mind busy, there's types of fishing that you can do to do that. And so that's naturally why I developed a love for fly fishing. It's not necessarily your go sit on a bank, take out your camping chair, cast a line and wait for something to happen. You kind of hunt for your fish, but you keep yourself busy. You're constantly thinking about your next move, constantly thinking about what's happening underneath the surface of the water. You hiking through beautiful terrain and scenery. You in the river, you out the river. And you're constantly working. You have to keep casting and working the water, trying to figure out where the fish are. For a person like me who doesn't have patience and wants to keep busy, it's the perfect situation fly fishing is. But in the same breath, I can tell you learn patience in a different way. I mean, you're not always hooking fish, you're not always catching fish. And so you have to be patient and stick with what you know. Trust your gut until you figure out where the fish are or what they're eating or what they're doing. So it's patience in that way, but not necessarily sitting and waiting for something to happen, if that makes sense.
And I think the thing that hooks you is when you get that really nice fish. I mean, or in my case, I haven't really pulled out too much myself, but just even if you can feel that on your line and you lose it, right after that, it's like you're hooked. Okay, excuse the pun.
Yeah.
And then you just need to do it again. And I can almost tell you, Carl, it's a little bit like playing a good shot in golf. It's like you want to just get that feeling again. So I think that's what hooked me. And you, Rhuan?
Exactly that. It's we've got a saying in fly fishing, the tug is the drug. It's once that fish eats, there's no greater feeling on earth, especially for a fly fisherman like me. You work hard. I mean, sometimes when you target a specific fish or a species, it will take you months of planning and coming up with ideas on how to fool that fish or to target that fish. Figuring out what flies or lures to throw at it. And it's like this big build-up. And on the day when you've eventually hooked that fish, I remember a couple of years ago, I was dead set on catching a largemouth yellowfish, one of our indigenous species in South Africa, on a fly. And I worked, when I say years to do it, it probably was years. I just couldn't. I've hooked them before. I just didn't land one, or it was a different species that took the fly and not the one that I was hunting. And I remember the first time I actually brought that fish to hand and held it in the water. I mean, there's no greater feeling on earth. It's such a feeling of accomplishment. It's hard. It's almost difficult to put into words. It really is what the tug is the drug.
And I mean, I can hear if you're saying preparing for months, that makes sense. So there's a bit of a science to it as well.
Yeah, definitely. And I go back to you in charge. You're the master of your own destiny. You can decide how difficult you want to make it, how technical you want to make it, or how easy you want to make it. And it can differ from trip to trip or fishing experience to fishing experience, but you can really spend the time, prepare as much as you want to target a specific species, or you can just go out and have fun. That's the beauty about fishing. There's no set way or perfect way to do it.
When it comes to the flies itself in fly fishing, do people just go out and buy it these days, or do you still sit and you make each little fly perfectly?
Yeah, like I said, there's such a variety of anglers out there, and people want different things from their fishing. So in fly fishing, there's a huge contingency of people that still buy flies or would go into the shop and buy flies from the shop. But then there's a massive group of guys that still want to sit in front of their vices and make their own flies. I tie my own flies. For me, it's part of the journey. It's part of the adventure. Like I said, when you do months of preparation to target a specific species, adding to that your own fly that you tied with your own hands and catching a fish on it, it's part of the accomplishment. So yeah, there's still fly tying, and I mean, down in the Cape, there's a group of guys that are excellent fly tyers, where you guys are. There's a guy who actually wrote a book about fly tying, and it's quite popular in South Africa and even internationally. Gordon van der Spey. So yeah, fly tying is still a big part of fly fishing.
Okay.
So now that you're hooked on that feeling of catching that fish you wanted, there's obviously a lot of preparation that goes into it. So let's start off by chatting about the different types of hooks and baits, etc.
Yeah, so if we can break it down, there's probably three main facets of fishing. Like I said, I'm a fly fisher. I'm a converted fly fisherman. I've been fly fishing exclusively for the last 12 to 15 years. But there are three different facets. It's basically the main ones is fly, bait, and lure. And there's a bit of a difference. Bait fishing, you kind of targeting fish and you working on all of their senses, their sense of smell, there's vibration. They've got a lateral line. All fish have this where they can pick up vibrations and movement in the water. So you're targeting that, and then their eyesight. With lure and fly fishing, you kind of take the smell out of it because lures and flies don't have any smell. Then you're working on the sight and vibration only. And for fly fishing, it's almost exclusively sight fishing, even though that you do give off a bit of vibration in the water. So yeah, the hooks and the tackle differ a lot from those different facets. Lures are factory made, so you buy them ready made from the shop. They come rigged with hooks. Sometimes you do have to add a bit of weight. Fly fishing, like we've discussed, you can buy your flies. Some flies do have weight on them. Others are just some feathers and fur on a hook, tied onto a hook. And then your bait fishing, you've got sinkers, your hooks, and then obviously you've got to buy some bait, depending on what species you're targeting. It could be crushed up millies or dough, or it could be aardwurms, like the old school people used to fish. Yeah, it varies so much. If you jump onto the internet now and you go onto an online tackle store, you can get lost in there. I mean, there's such a variety of hooks. There's such a variety of weights, lines, leaders. I mean, it almost doesn't stop. You can get lost in there.
Something I was wondering, Rhuan, and you'll be able to tell us, do the fish learn? Like, are they intelligent enough to know, they're not trying this on me, this isn't going to work? Or like, or is that just us thinking that they know exactly what to do and not to do?
No, fish get clever.
Okay.
I've seen it with my eyes, and any fly fisherman and even lure fisherman will vouch for this, because we spend a lot of time trying to actually see the fish. Like I mentioned earlier, we don't have the luxury of luring a fish to your fly with smells or tastes in the water. So we try and find the fish first before we start fishing for them. So a lot of our fishing happens in crystal clear water where you can see the fish, and you notice their behavior, you pick up on their behavior. So literally when you put a bait or a fly on top of it, you can see its reactions, and they do. They wise up very quickly, and wow. I've seen it with my own eyes. And even here in the Midlands, we in trout country, we've got trout dams that we stock with trout, rainbow trout and brown trout. Once you start seeing a dam in our area get a lot of angling pressure, the fishing does suffer from it. So the more anglers throw at those fish, and the more of those fish are caught, they do wise up to your tactics and your flies.
And then you got to change your strategy again.
Definitely, yes.
Okay. Wow.
They're clever creatures, eh?
Tell me a bit about the ideal conditions for the different types of fishing.
Yeah, it differs from species and body of water that you're fishing. And a lot of people, I've heard the term fair weather fisherman thrown around a lot. A lot of people think that the better the conditions, the better the fishing. So what we think is good weather conditions, sunny outside, no wind. A lot of people think that that's the ideal fishing conditions. In my experience, it's not. Especially when you fly fishing, you kind of want a bit of overcast, cloudy conditions, a bit of wind, so that those fish, they kind of lose a bit of inhibition, and they'll come closer to the surface. They'll come out of their holes and their ambush areas, because now the prey that they hunt won't see them that easy when there's adverse conditions. So when there's a bit of disturbance on the water, when there's a bit of cloudy weather, even when there's rain, when lots of guys will pack it up and go home, if you stay out there, that's often when you catch the big fish when he comes out, because he knows, especially the predators, he knows that the fish that he's hunting, they won't pick up on his presence that easy when the weather's a bit upside down.
It's very interesting, eh? Do you have a favorite fishing spot? It could be in South Africa or anywhere in the world.
So I see myself as a yellowfish addict. So yellowfish are an indigenous barb species in South Africa, and the yellowfish that we find in South Africa you don't find anywhere else in the world. And there's 9 of those species in our country. And so my favorite fishing spots, are around areas where you find yellowfish. If I had to pick one, it would probably be the Orange River, the Mighty Orange, the biggest river in South Africa. It's got phenomenal fishing, especially for fly anglers and lure anglers. And at the right time of the year, before the rainy season, it's got crystal clear waters, and you can actually target sight fish for the yellowfish in the river. And it's got both my favorite species, the largemouth yellowfish and the smallmouth yellowfish. So that would probably be my favorite one in South Africa.
Have you traveled extensively with your fishing to exotic locations?
So my job, I'm one of the lucky ones. It's one of the reasons I actually worked hard at getting into the sort of TV presenter thing, so that I can see these destinations and go to these places. So I've been lucky enough to see some incredible fishing destinations and places that I probably wouldn't have if I wasn't in this position.
Okay.
So I've been all over Africa. I've fished on the Zambezi River for tigerfish. I've been up to Tanzania and fished for tigerfish there, a different species of tigerfish. I've been lucky enough to walk on the flats of the Seychelles, fishing in the crystal clear waters of the Seychelles for saltwater species on fly. And then probably one of the most interesting places that I've been to is a place called St. Brandon's, which is officially part of Mauritius, but it's about 450 kilometers northeast of the main island of Mauritius. And it's literally surrounded. It's a long stretch of atolls in the middle of the Indian Ocean, and it's surrounded by blue water. It takes about 32 hours, depending on the current and the winds, to get from Mauritius to the island. But once you're there, it's fisherman's paradise. It's an incredible place. One of the best experiences I've had, fishing and otherwise. There's just endless sand and flats. So when I talk about flats, it's basically an island or an atoll that's just covered by water when the tides are up. And what happens is the fish come from the deeper water onto these flats, shallow flats, and they come and feed on crustaceans and smaller bait fish and that sort of thing.
And they don't know your tactics at all. So they literally just take everything you offer, or not?
So because it's so remote, there's an argument that the fish aren't as wise as they are in some other places. Obviously, there's no population of people there, or a very small population of people there, and they aren't harassed as much. So, that's one of the reasons why it's such an incredible destination. But make no mistake, they're still clever fish. Okay. I mean, bonefish and permit are the two main species that you target on those atolls. And the permit is arguably one of the most intelligent saltwater fish species that you can target on a fly. They call them the holy grail of fly fishing.
Okay.
And I haven't landed one as yet. I spent a week on the atoll of St. Brandon's, and I just couldn't hook one. They were giving me the proverbial middle fin. But yeah, it was a phenomenal experience.
So with all your traveling, you've probably made a lot of friends, a lot of acquaintances, and picked up a lot of experience. Tell me, do you have like a good fishing story from all your travels?
Carl, I've got many. It's one of the reasons why I started the Afrikaans program on Supersport, My Vis en Man Vriend. I realized that there's so many interesting characters and people out there in fishing, and they've all got a unique story to tell. And that's kind of what my program focuses on. Not so much the fishing. The fishing is an added bonus, and it's always nice to see some good fishing content on a fishing program. But it's more focused on the story of the anglers. So I visit quite a few different anglers from different walks of life, and I try and share their story. But I'm just thinking off the top of my head one that's very interesting, and I think you guys would enjoy. One of my good friends and colleagues here at Wildfly, Trevor Sitole, he grew up on the banks of the Mooi River, one of the oldest trout rivers in South Africa. I mean, when I say oldest trout rivers, trout were brought across from Europe and introduced into our waters. They're not an indigenous species.
Okay.
And one of the first rivers that they were introduced to was the Mooi River. And Trevor Sitole, he grew up on the banks of the Mooi River in a village called Tendela. And he saw these guys, weird-looking guys dressed in their attire and these funny little feathers hanging from their caps and their vests, casting weird fishing rods into the Mooi River, catching these speckled beauties. And he became very interested in the sport. And he would venture down from his house down to the edge of the river and started chatting to these anglers. And one of the anglers, a lady angler, Linda Gole, kind of took him under her wing, introduced him to the sport, taught him how to fly cast, taught him about all different species and the flies. And he just immediately took to it and immersed himself into this fly fishing culture. And he started fishing competitively for Natal. And eventually he decided that he wants to make this his full-time job. And there's a thing in fly fishing where people get paid, guides get paid to take people fishing. And there's a big industry, especially internationally, especially the US and the European market and the Russian market.
Okay.
Guys spend a lot of money to be taken out on waters and world-class fishing destinations and be guided by these anglers. And you have to be quite a good angler to become a professional guide. And South Africa, I'm very proud to say we boast some very good international fly fishing guides, and Trevor set his sights on becoming one of those. So fast forward a couple of years later, fishing for Natal, learning the ins and outs of fly fishing, he landed a guiding gig in Bolivia, in the jungles of Bolivia. And he spent a couple months in the jungles of Bolivia. And from that, he got a job in the Seychelles and became a professional guide in the Seychelles. And now he's internationally known as a fly fishing guide. He actually featured on a segment on CNN. So there's no ceiling to where this hobby can take you.
Amazing story.
It is, eh? I wanted to find out also a lot of the themes we explore in the podcast is the preparation parts of any trip, whether it be camping or hiking. And it's the same for fishing. You get maybe a weekend away, maybe just an afternoon, maybe a multi-day fishing trip. How do you go about planning for these various types?
Yeah, so that's the nice thing about fishing. Like I said earlier, and I keep going back to that, you can do it however you see fit. And I like all sorts. I like the multi-day trips and the proper planning of a week trip to some destination in South Africa, be it the Transkei or down where you guys are in the Cape. But I also like to sneak out and do a one-day trip, especially if the weather is in your favor or you've got a front coming through, a prefrontal weather window where you know if you go out now you'll catch some fish. But both of those you need preparation. Especially fly fishing, it's an adventure sport. Like I mentioned earlier, you don't sit and wait around for anything to happen. You actually go out and hunt. So you take a lot of outdoor activities and you amalgamate them into one. You hiking, you need a bit of bushcraft. You in the water, you out the water. You need to obviously feed yourself while you're out there. If you're on a multi-day trip or if you're on a one-day trip. So there is a lot of preparation that goes into it. And you are in wild places when you go out, so you need to be prepared. And then always, weather is also a factor. And we know how that can turn on a dime. When you look up and the clouds are forming above, one of those places, Sterkfontein Dam, it's a very popular angling destination, but the weather can turn on you very quickly. So it's always important to have the right clothing, to prepare with what you're going to need on the day. Hydration is important. The sun is a factor. You always have to protect yourself from the sun. You're always outside in the sun. That's the nature of fishing. So, and then also a medic kit. You never know what you're going to encounter out there. There's snakes. You might stand on a loose rock, slip and fall. So, preparation is key. Outside of your fishing preparation, you need to prepare for the outdoors.
Rhuan, do you prefer going at it on your own or in a group? Especially when it comes to these things you just mentioned, like the dangers.
I actually like a bit of both, and it depends on the day, what mood I'm in. Sometimes you want to go by yourself and just be by yourself and with your own thoughts and just like escape from the world. So I do enjoy that, but I also like fishing with friends. I mean, one of my favorite quotes from a movie is from Into the Wild. The main theme of the movie is happiness is only true happiness when shared with others. So, and with fishing, it's the same. Some of my best catches, I don't think would have been the same if I didn't have a friend or someone there to celebrate it with. So, it depends on what mood I am in.
That makes sense.
On the day.
Yeah.
Wonderful movie. Just stay away from the berries. That's the big thing. Let's chat about Let's chat about the conservation aspect of fishing, because I imagine if even a small percentage of fishing nets are left in the wild each year, that could have a devastating effect. So, what are the rules and regulations when it comes to conservation?
Yes, fishing has come a long way to more conservation-minded and orientated. I mean, back in the day, almost all fishermen kept every catch that they caught. So the fish, and there's nothing wrong. Don't get me wrong. There's nothing wrong with keeping a fish for the pot. We all enjoy a fresh fish on the braai, or whatever the case may be. But it's come a long way. Like I said, like the rest of the world, I think more people are conservation minded and realize that everything on this earth needs to be treated with respect. So that the next generation can also experience what we're experiencing. So, we've moved into a catch and release era of fishing. So, especially with the lure and the fly anglers, we try to treat the fish with respect. So we practice how we handle the fish. We try and keep them in the water as much as possible, so that when we've taken our pictures or we've experienced our moment of joy with the fish, when we let them go, they're nice and healthy and strong, and they can survive another couple of years, and maybe the next guy can catch them when they've grown bigger and they're more of a trophy specimen. So catch and release is a big part of our fishing.
Do you think there's enough education surrounding this? Because I think there's like a consciousness now that people realize I need to protect this. But now, I mean, young people, they'll catch and they don't necessarily know how to release and end up killing the fish in the process. I mean, I'm wondering if there's any space for more education in that sense.
There always is. But there's definitely a movement into that direction. If you look at the media side of angling, the magazines, the TV shows, the videos online, even on Instagram, there's a big movement towards conservation, and hopefully the younger generation, that's what they do. They spend a lot of their time consuming media.
That's very true, yes.
They're going to come across these things. I mean, outside of just catch and release, even leaving a small footprint, like when we go out, we try not to leave any, you mentioned nets and things earlier. We try to leave a very small footprint, only our footprints, if I can put it that way. When we cut off a piece of line, we make sure we pick that up, roll it up, and put it in a packet. Or there's a clever thing that they developed that we sell in our retail shop. It's literally a holder for discarded line. You stick it in there and you twist a knob, and it gobbles up the line. And when you get home, you can discard all your excess fishing line. So there's hashtags, there's things out there in the digital space that push for this. It's not cool anymore to treat the fish poorly or to treat the environment poorly. So hopefully the younger generation sees a lot of that on whichever media they consume.
That's good to know.
Do you have any experiences where things just didn't go to plan for you on a fishing trip? A lot of life
You
is
want
trial
the drama.
and error.
Tell us about the drama.
Give me the drama.
Too many to mention.
Fantastic. How much time do we have?
It doesn't always go as planned, and especially if you a TV presenter on a fishing program.
Oh,
I mean,
yes.
you see half an hour of a 7-day fishing trip or a 5-day fishing trip. So, and we've got the luxury of editing. You guys know all about this. We've got the luxury of editing, so we can cut out all the bad and just show the good. So by the time you watch a half-hour episode, you seeing guys landing fish after fish and the perfect cast and all of that stuff. So no, it doesn't always go your way. I mean, fly fishing specifically, you false casting the whole time. It's not, if I can try and explain, where conventional fishing, it's one cast. You throw out a heavy bait or lure out there, and you bring it back in, or you wait for a fish to eat. With fly, the line does all the work for you. So there's no weight on your fly. You need to false cast. So you need to make a couple of casts with that fly and hook to get it out to the spot that you want to catch that fish or that you're targeting. So you can imagine when a wind picks up and that cast kind of goes astray, and you hook yourself in the back with a 2-0 hook. That's not fun. And I had an experience on the Zambezi River where we had gusting winds, and I was making tiger fish flies are big flies, and you tie them on big hooks. So I was fishing this big 2-0 brush fly, casting it out to catch a tiger fish, and this gust of wind just picked up and slammed that fly right into my back. And the hook wasn't debarbed, and now you're in the middle of the river, no one around. Luckily, they've got kits on the boat, so they've got disinfectant and all the stuff that you need to treat the wound. But now this 2-0 hook was buried into my back, past the barb, and we couldn't get it out.
What do they do? Pull it
same
out
time,
or push it through? I need to know. I'm sorry.
So there's a trick where you can, and that's your first port of call. You can push the hook down, take a thicker gauge line, like a 80-pound line or a 60-pound line, wrap it around the shank of the hook, push down on the eye of the hook, and then kind of yank it out. And 7 out of 10 times that will work. But in this case, it was just buried in too deep. So what we had to do is, luckily we had some gin on the boat. So I took a couple of swigs of gin and grabbed some ice from the cooler box, numbed the area, and took a slice of apple, and we had to push the hook through my back, through the apple. The apple is actually just to keep the skin down and get the hook to push through. And then we had to squash the barb and take the hook out that way. So yeah, it wasn't a fun experience, but luckily there wasn't too much blood afterwards and we could carry on fishing.
And you've got the scar to prove all of that. So.
There was a bit of a welt and a scar on my back, but it didn't last too long. Okay. So yeah, but that's just part of when you get into fly fishing. It's one of the things that you need to be aware of, and always go with someone that's experienced, so that when you end up in a situation like that, someone can assist you and help you. And most important thing, with lure fishing and fly fishing, always wear sunglasses, and quality sunglasses, because it's one thing to take a hook out of your back. It's another thing to try and take a hook out of your eye. Okay. That cancels your fishing trip immediately, because you have to go to the doctor's rooms to get that fixed.
Oh, what a lovely story about fishing. So listen, I think it's a good idea to maybe ask you, how do you inspire the next generation, or someone like me who has not gone fishing, to take up the hobby or the activity of fishing? Rhuan, how would you inspire someone to go fishing?
Yeah, for me personally, I think if I could inspire the next generation, it would be to think about it as spending time in the outdoors. If you've got a adventurous sort of vein in your body, or you like being outdoors, go fishing, because you see amazing places, you see amazing nature scenery, animals and fauna and flora. Like, I'm trying to learn more about birds and bird species. So every time I go out there, I see some incredible bird life. I see incredible wildlife. And even, like I said, the fauna and flora, I'm trying to learn about plant species and stuff. Once you take the time and take it as a holistic experience, as a complete experience, you realize that fishing is just one of the great outdoor activities. It really, really is. And then on top of that, you in this wonderful nature scenery, or in this wonderful picturesque river, and you catch a fish that you've been trying to hunt down for the last couple of hours. I mean, I don't think it gets any better than that, in my opinion.
I think you've made it sound really exciting, Kyle. Like, it's about the adventure of it all. And then for you as well, it's not just going out into nature, it's doing something there. So yes. I think fishing is for you. You just don't know it yet.
Yes, it could be. It could be. I'll definitely find out. Quick break, and then we'll chat about a few products you can use for your fishing trip.
The outdoor life is for everyone. And our clothes are too. It's made to last in the sun, wind, and weather. Whether you're fishing, hiking, camping, or going to work. Get all your favorite brands like First Ascent, Cape Storm, African Nature, High Tech, and Columbia all under one roof. Outdoor Warehouse, for every adventure. Also shop online.
For Every Adventure podcast, bringing you all the tips and tricks for your next adventure.
Okay, so we're going to get Kyle ready for his first fishing trip. I think we need some gear, like
sunblock first. I've got ready. Sunblock first.
Please get Kyle a hat and some sunblock. But then
and sunglasses, apparently.
Yes, that's also, we don't want you to take an eye out. And when it comes to the actual clothing that you wear, Rhuan, do you have any ideas for us there?
Yeah, clothing is important. It's very important when it comes to fishing. You spending a whole day out in the elements, so clothing is a huge part of it. Obviously, you need to have your tackle. So, Kyle, we'll get you your starter kit, so you can obviously fish with the tackle. But clothing is so important. And you touched on the sunblock. It's a massive thing in fishing. You're spending hours out in the sun. So long sleeve shirts that is SPF 50 sort of proof is important. And I like quite a light shirt. So anything that's breathable, that's also good, but it has to have sun protection, some sort of sun protection in there. And then obviously you're spending time in water, so it needs to be quick dry as well. So there's some really cool products that I don't leave home without. I mean, I'm not going to go fishing in a t-shirt and jeans. That's just silly. So the First Ascent Nueva shirt is an incredible shirt. I've been fishing with that for a long time now. It's got the sun protection, but it's also nice and light and breathable, and it's quick dry. So when you land up in the water, which is inevitable, you're not going to stay wet for the whole day. So, and then buff. A buff is super, super important. I don't leave for any fishing trip without my buff. And Mombakkies is my favorite buff.
Okay.
So I always take that with me. So clothing is a huge part, and then you always want to take a rain jacket, something that's lightweight and that you can fold up and put in a day pack. It's incredibly important because, like I said earlier, weather is weather, and you can look at so many weather apps that's out there. You are going to get surprised by the weather. I've seen it on many, many fishing trips. So pack like it's going to be 4 seasons in one day, so you are prepared for anything.
And then obviously there's some room for recreational activities when you're fishing. So to keep the mood light, to keep the cool drinks cold and the meat on the braai, do you have any specifics there?
So I'm a big fan of after fishing beer.
Yes.
So my Stanley cooler box is one of my favorites. Not only for day trips, because most cooler boxes can keep things cool for a day trip, but when I do a weekend fishing trip or an extended fishing trip, nothing beats my Stanley cooler. I mean, I would go home with a cooler box full of ice after 4 days of fishing, and still have ice cold beers inside there, or maybe not ice cold beers left, but definitely ice.
Is it really?
I love my.
Is it really like after fishing beer, or is it during?
I think it's a during. Well, it depends, maybe.
It depends on how good the fishing's going.
Oh, okay. That makes a lot of sense.
Well, that's sort of like a rugby game. If you win the game, you celebrate. If you lose, you do the opposite. But, there's a constant there.
Drown your sorrows. Yeah. So, no, I love my Stanley cooler box. And I'm naturally a big fan of Stanley as well. Because we leave early mornings. Like often you want to be on the water's edge when the sun just peeks its head. So coffee is a massive part of it. I mean, when you do a 4 o'clock in the morning wake up and you pack your fishing gear, you can imagine waking up at 4 can be hard. But when you're going fishing, it's often the inspiration you need. But you can't go out with a nice cup of coffee. And my Stanley mugs, it's a game changer for me. I don't go out fishing early mornings without my Stanley mug. So that's also a big one for me.
And then if you want to braai along the water's edge, do you have any favorite products there?
Yep.
You should, yeah.
If I'm a fan of a beer, I'm a fan of a braai. So I do. I've got this amazing flip-up braai, ammo box braai from Outdoor Warehouse, and it literally stays in my car. I leave it in my bakkie, and there's always some charcoal in there. If I can find firewood around the area that I'm fishing, that's a bonus. So that's always good. But I always have a bit of charcoal and some fire lighters and a lighter. When the fishing is tough and you're not catching any fish, it's always nice to take some time out at lunchtime, take out the ammo box braai, flip it out, put some wors on the braai and have a boerie roll in the middle of a boerie roll in the middle of the bush. I mean, nothing beats that. That happens quite a lot on our fishing trips. Me personally, I'm known for that. Lots of my friends, when we go out, they're like, "Do you have your braai here?" And I'm like, "Do I have my braai here?" Of course I do.
I here? Of course.
So it's a bit of a thing when I go fishing with my friends. I always have my flip up braai out there and some wors. I'm known for the boerie rolls on our fishing trips.
Rhuan, this has been a fun conversation. Thanks for all the insight with fishing. I am inspired to go give it a shot. My baby is at the recording now about 4.5 weeks old. So give me I don't know, what's a good age? 5?
Oh, congratulations first and foremost. So I'm a new father as well.
Nice.
My little girl is 4 months old in a couple of days' time. So yeah, Kyle, you've got an open invite and you too, Chanel. Whenever you find yourself in the beautiful Natal Midlands, we've got some amazing trout waters here. Give me a ring. I'll take you out. I'll teach you the the art of fly fishing and how to cast a fly, and I guarantee you will walk away with a rainbow trout at the end of the day. That's my guarantee to you. So if you ever find yourself in the Natal Midlands, just give me a shot and we will spend some time on the water.
I may just take you up on that offer. Thanks a lot.
Rhuan, thank you so much. It's really been inspiring.
Thank you guys. Thanks for the chat. And hopefully I've recruited some new anglers for the angling fraternity.
Definitely.
And definitely follow us on Spotify and Apple. Every 2 weeks, we have a brand new episode. So, hey, this weekend, whenever you're listening, go outside, go do something, go connect with nature. We'll see you in 2 weeks. Cheers.
Join the For Every Adventure podcast as we explore the great outdoors.